Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our event, Networking in the U.S. Legal Community. Thank you very much for being with us. We know you will find this session a very productive one. You will learn a lot. So thank you very much for being here with us today. Before we start and go to the main point of this session, let me tell you a little bit more about what is Education USA. Education USA is a global network of advising centers that is sponsored by the U.S. State Department. So we are the official source of information for you when you want to go to the United States to study any type of degree. We offer accurate, comprehensive, and correct information related to U.S. higher education. And the most important thing about all of the different services that we offer is that they are free for all of you. So don't hesitate to contact us. You can find your closest center at educationusa.state.gov, and there we will be able to advise you in all of the questions that you may have about the process that you need to follow, okay? And talking about the process, we divide this process into 5 steps. The first step is related to the research of your options. There are more than 4,000 higher education institutions in the United States. So you are the ones that are going to decide where to go. So we're going to help you to find the best fit for you. The second step will be finance your studies. We all worry about money when talking about the studying abroad. So on this step, we're going to help you to find the best way to organize your budget, okay? After that, we will advise you about how to complete your application, all of the requirements that you need to fulfill, the paper that you need to send, and all of the things that are related to the paperwork. We can help you with that. Once that you have sent your application and you have got an admission letter, we're going to help you to apply for your visa, okay? So we can help you to prepare for the interview. We're going to tell you what kind of papers do you need in order to ask for this special visa that will be the student visa. And well, everything related with that, we will try to answer all of your questions. And finally, once that you're ready to go to your chosen school, we're going to help you to prepare for your departure. Since very basic things from what to pack and the documents that you may need, to also know who you need to contact in the United States in your new school, and how you can maintain your status, and all of the different processes that you will need to follow once that you are already a student in the United States. Okay, so don't hesitate to contact us. We will help you in all of these steps for free, as I already mentioned. And well, these are the 4 most asked questions that we used to get. It's very common that when you guys approach to us, you ask us, do you offer scholarships? We don't offer scholarships. Well, we only offer one scholarship, that is the Opportunity Funds Scholarship. But apart of that, we don't offer them, okay? But we can help you to find the ones that different institutions are offering or different organizations are offering to help you to finance your studies. Another very common question, do you offer English courses? No, that is not our main purpose, but we can help you to improve your English level or to practice your English while you are still here in Mexico or in the region, because we offer conversation clubs and different activities that can help you to practice and improve your English while you are still here. The third one, do you have agreements with U.S. institutions? We do not have agreements because, as I already mentioned, there are many different institutions, and you are the ones that are going to decide where you want to go, what you want to study, and how you want to do that, okay? So we don't have agreements, but if you are already studying in an institution and your institution has an agreement with an American school, we can help you. And if not, there's no problem. We will help you to get into the school that you prefer without, by just following the proper process, okay? And the last question, do you offer support for an academic exchange? Remember that academic exchanges need a previous agreement among your institution and the institution in the United States. So we do not offer that, but if your institution already has an agreement, so we can help you to follow the proper process. Okay, so well, now having said so, let me introduce you to our special guests today. We have the honor that have with us Hannah Logan, that is the Assistant Director, International and Graduate Programs from University of Minnesota in Minnesota Law. We also have Olivera Jovanovic. She's the Director at LLM and Master's Programs from University of San Francisco School of Law. And well, today was going to be with us also Sarah Dorner, the Director of Graduate and International Admissions from the University of New Hampshire, Franklin Pierce School of Law. Unfortunately, she had some situations and she's not able to to be with us today, but Hannah and Olivera are going to be with us and they are going to offer a great session for all of you. So thank you very much. And well, Hannah and Olivera, welcome. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Edith. Welcome, everyone. I will share my screen and we will get right to it. We are really excited to be here with you today to share this important information that we think will be really useful for you, hopefully, about networking in the legal community in the United States. So we're going to do this in 3 parts. The first will be relatively short, talking about the US legal education system and LLM programs, which is where we work. We will spend the majority of our time together this evening talking about networking and doing some practice exercises so you can have something tangible, something permanent you can bring home with you when you're done. And then, of course, there will be time for questions and answers after all of that. So starting very generally, the LLM degree, which is what we primarily work with, is a tertiary or postgraduate degree that sits after or on top of the JD degree. So in the United States, you get your bachelor's degree first, then you would get the JD degree. Then if you want, you would get an LLM degree. If you are from outside of the United States, you would come to the LLM program after just getting a bachelor's of law, and you do not need a JD degree. So you would go directly from the LLB to the LLM. The first degree in law is general. The JD, for example, and LLB usually. The LLM can also be general, but some LLM programs are specialized and they offer expert credentials in a specific area of law.
Perfect, thanks. Oh.
Go ahead.
All right, so just to give you a little more detail about each of the degrees that Hannah mentioned, and we'll go through this quickly. The JD degree is a 3-year degree program. It allows someone who takes the degree to be eligible to sit for a bar exam in any US state, and it's the standard for most attorneys practicing in the US. There are going to be domestic students enrolled in this, and it is the preferred degree for working long-term in the US. The LLM, by contrast, is a 1-year degree. It does make you eligible to take the bar exam in some states. And as Hannah mentioned, there's the possibility for specialization or for general studies to qualify for one of those bar exams. Some schools offer you the opportunity to take those LLM units and transfer them into a JD if through your time in the program, you feel that that's your best course of action based on your goals. This is not standard, and so you do need to look at every school very specifically. There are going to be different rules at every institution on how to do this, if you even can do it. The LLM degree is populated by mostly international students, although specialization programs may have more domestic students. Next slide, please, Hannah. All right, there are 2 additional degrees that you will see schools offer. The SJD, it's a research-based doctorate degree. It varies in length from 3 to 7 years. And the goal with the SJD, and it's called sometimes called the JSD, and it stands for Doctor of Science and Law. It's a terminal degree for those interested in academia, and it's really designed for that path. You will have to have both a first degree in law, like a JD or LLM, JD or LLB, and an LLM before you can apply for these programs. Not all schools offer them. Finally, you'll also see the MLS. That stands for Masters in Legal Studies. Sometimes you'll see MJur, Master of Jurisprudence. This is a one-year degree. It is common for domestic students. And the goal and the difference between the LLM is that MLS will not prepare you to sit for any state licensure or practice law. It is meant to give you a fundamental grounding in legal principles. Sometimes they'll focus on a particular field, but they are not intended to be a precursor to practicing law or advancing careers in law. So the degree for most attorneys or most people who have an LLB internationally that they will come to the US for is the LLM degree. And that's what we will use as a starting point today. Next slide, Hannah.
All right, so you are here at this session because you have at least a little bit of interest in studying law in the US, we assume. And there's a lot of professional value in that. You will gain a huge personal and professional network. Not only are you going to be making professional connections with your classmates, often they're lifelong friendships and much deeper than just a professional network as well. An LLM is an internationally recognized credential on your CV or resume that no matter where you want to work in the world, a law firm or government office, anything like that will recognize the LLM degree and the work that you put in to earn that. When you are in the US studying an LLM, it does usually make you eligible for OPT, optional practical training, which is a one-year extension of your student visa if you'd like to work. And often the US bar exam. Now we can get into the details of that in the question and answer session if you'd like, but many states will allow you to take the bar exam with an LLB from outside the US than an LLM from the US. It also is just a great opportunity to work on your cross-cultural competency. The world is getting smaller, multinational corporations, different transactions, everything's happening internationally. And this gives you a really great opportunity to work with people from other cultures and other countries. There's also a lot of academic and co-curricular experience you will get in the US that you just can't get anywhere else. Obviously, you will just increase and improve your knowledge of the US legal system. Your legal English and conversational English skills will improve, and you'll get a lot of practical experiences as a student with things like clinics, judicial observation, pro bono volunteering opportunities, really hands-on experience that you can then take home and have that really deep firsthand knowledge of practicing law in the United States. You're integrated with US JD students in most LLM programs, certainly not all, but most, and that gives you an opportunity to network with US future lawyers as well. And then sort of on the fun end, there are lots of special events and student organizations. You can really have socializing with your peers, with US JD students, with other international students, and it's really quite fun to be in the US, I think. Then, of course, if you want to study law, you need to figure out what is the best fit for you. There are so many different law schools and LLM programs, and each one is right for some people and each one is wrong for somebody else. So you'll want to think about, are you eligible for a specific school's law program? Do you have the credentials that they require to even apply? Is it in a location that you would enjoy spending a year or two in? Are you looking for a specialized program or more general courses? Are there faculty that you know about that you want to meet and connect with? How big of a program you want to spend time in and the types of courses are really important. There are huge LLM programs with hundreds of students, and there are tiny LLM programs with maybe a dozen or two students. There's something for everybody. Each school has their own experiential and clinical program opportunities, different social and extracurricular opportunities, and then of course the alumni network, which is sort of the networking part of why we're here today too, I think.
So as you start to look at programs, and we promise to be quick here, we wanted to provide you with some resources that you can utilize later on. I want to make a couple of notes about what you see here. The first two, the lsacc.org website, which is also the organization that provides the common application for most LLM programs, although some will allow you to apply directly, and the ABA, Those are official resources. Law schools are providing data to them regularly. And the ABA is actually our accrediting body. So you're going to find accurate and up-to-date website accurate and up-to-date LLM information there. There are a variety of resources like LLM Study or LLM Guide. Keep in mind that while schools are posting some of the information, those are paid websites for advertising. So just because a school isn't listed on there doesn't mean anything about its value as a degree program. So do keep that in mind. Use LinkedIn. We'll talk more about that later. The law school websites are wonderful, as well as Education USA. And attend a lot of events and ask us questions. Our job is to help you find the right program and to help us find the right students. And we enjoy so much having conversations with students all over the world. And I'll make one note, US News and World Report, there has been a lot of turnover this last year. So any ranking system, I would say take a look at with a critical eye, because the programs, all the rankings focus very heavily on the underlying JD program, not necessarily the LLM program. So while they might be informative, they should not be your end all. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Hannah, because we would be remiss if we didn't at least talk to you a little bit about our individual programs. Hannah?
I will take just 10 seconds here. I'm from the University of Minnesota Law School. You can see on the map where we're located right in the middle. There's a lot of nature, some big cities, and I would love to talk to you more about that after our official presentation here.
And I will represent Sarah. She's from the University of New Hampshire, Franklin Pierce School of Law, and they have 3 programs, and they offer some wonderful opportunities, as do all law schools. With that, I'll make my little plug for the University of San Francisco, located in San Francisco, California. And we have a general and specialized program. And I hope the Golden Gate Bridge tells you where we are. So we hope to chat more about our specific programs with you later.
All right. That is it for the sort of general overview of the US legal education system. I hope you learned a little bit about the different degree options. And now, why you're all here, I'm sure, let's get into the networking. So why would someone network? You could be looking for employment. It could be a very specific sort of serious ask of what you're looking for. It could also be a more general, casual connection for future professional questions or opportunities. Maybe not even a job, just a professional development workshop that you might not hear about unless you knew someone, or an opportunity to advise or consult on a project somewhere. And it's also a chance to learn more about your field of interest. So if you are young, if you are a student or a young attorney, it's helpful to network, to ask a current practitioner, what is it like working in your specific area of law? What is it like working in that field? And you can then take that information to apply to your own situation if you want to pursue a new job sometime in the future, more education, that sort of thing. One thing we want to focus on today is your personal brand. So when you are networking, how you present yourself is your personal brand. It exists whether you intentionally create it or not. It's really just a culmination of all of your online and offline behavior. So you can cultivate it by thinking about setting goals. What do you want to be known for? When someone says, I know Olivera, she's very motivated, she's very organized. What do you want people to think about when they think of you? And what do you need to do to establish that identity among other people? Part of that is thinking about the qualities you possess. What do you have that others might not? What are you good at? What experiences do you have? What education have you accomplished? What knowledge do you have? And how do you think people perceive you when you're interacting with them professionally? It's a good idea to audit your existing brand. Look for yourself online. Search for your name. What do other people see right now about you? Do they see anything? Have you been very careful about posting on very private things? If you want to network and make yourself known to other people, you cannot be silent. You have to have some sort of post or social media presence or something online as well as offline in person. At some point, you will need to create a strategy. How will you showcase and market your brand? Do you want to start a blog? Do you want to be an expert in your field and provide interviews for other people's blogs or news outlets or something? Do you want to be really active on social media? Doing something like that with a regular schedule will be consistent and make sure that you have a consistent brand out in the world. There we go. So it's important to mention that it's not about presenting a fake identity or creating some sort of character of yourself. It's about curating parts of your personality to present yourself in the best possible light as you are networking. If you meet someone at a networking event and then they add you on LinkedIn, what are they going to see? You want them to see the best possible parts of you related to your professional development, your professional persona. So the benefit, or one major benefit of personal branding, is it's a way to improve your reputation. You really improve your credibility as you showcase your skills, you highlight your knowledge, you look like an expert or an authority in some specific area. It differentiates yourself. That's hard, even as my native language in English. It differentiates yourself as you explain what sets you apart from other people, and you demonstrate your specialties. It can really make a lasting impression. The more you show off your personal brand, the more visible you are, both online and in person, the more you will give people a way to remember you. And when then in the future, they're thinking, oh, I really need an expert on employment law. Oh, I met Olivia at the happy hour that one time. I'll send her a LinkedIn message. It will help them remember you and think of you in the future to then network with you as well. Connecting to your target audience helps them understand who you are and what you stand for. And that's all part of that personal brand, that persona, that who you are in the best light. So it really involves communicating your identity to the right people and building relationships. So it's not a one-way street either. It's important that this is an interactive relationship building endeavor. Not everyone is going to appreciate or resonate with your brand. So it's important to decide who you want to connect with before you really start getting into developing your brand and doing that process. So right now we're going to take 2 minutes and I want you to think about your brand. If you've got a pen and paper, if you've got a notes app on your phone, text your mom or your friend. What are 5 words or phrases that describe your brand? Some things that I want you to think about are, what qualities do you have that others might not? What are some core strengths or really strong skills that you have? What are some of your personal attributes, personality traits, or maybe just adjectives that describe you? How are you unique, either your personality or in what experiences you've had? Do you have knowledge that stands out in a room? And what are your professional goals? So think about 5 words or phrases. This 2 minutes is starting right now. Write them down, type them out, text them to your best friend. Think about, how would you want to be known by other people in the field? If you're interested, we would love to know more about you. And if you can think of 5 words or phrases and you want to share them with the group, you're welcome to put it in the chat. That might have some accountability for you then, that you've put it out into the universe, that these are 5 words or phrases that you think describe you and would be a good thing to have representing you as a personal brand out in the world.
And Hannah, while people are working, they need a little inspiration. I'm happy to share the
Please.
5 words that I've been working with on my brand. So passionate. I want people to understand that I'm enthusiastic about my work in higher education. Collaborative, because I work across departments and across teams. So I want them to know that I will be a team player. Results driven, because I do care about the outcomes. Strategic, in that I have the ability to do some long-term planning, which is particularly important in higher education. And then innovative, in that I'm not afraid of trying new things and seeing what works to help both students and universities succeed. So I hope that gives everyone a little inspiration. It doesn't have to be very difficult.
Right. And I think that's the thing. At this point, if you're just starting out thinking about your personal brand, be general. Think about what you enjoy doing and what you feel good about. We've got about 20 seconds left, and I will say that a couple of my words or phrases would be positive. I really always try and find the good in situations and think about the silver lining, even if it seems tough. I really like connecting people. I feel like I'm a connector. I'm always trying to think about, oh, I know Sarah was looking for someone, a type of lawyer who did this kind of law. Oh, I met someone at a thing. And I'm very committed. Once I say I'm going to do something, I will follow through and I will finish it. And I think that's a value that people want in a colleague. All right, it looks like some people are putting things in the chat. Oh, it's just Olivera encouraging you to, but even if you didn't put it in the chat, this is an important exercise, even on your own time later today, this weekend. If you want to network, it's important to have a brand. So as you're meeting people in real life, and then they Google you, they add you on LinkedIn, whatever that might be, you have something visible that they can see to then learn more about you. Thinking about moving on a little bit from the personal brand, then thinking about meeting people in real life, one thing we talk about a lot in the US is the elevator pitch. And so a pitch being like in baseball, the pitcher throws that original ball, and that's how the whole game starts, the whole play starts, right? So the elevator pitch is a brief professional introduction designed to make an impression on someone who you are meeting for the first time. And the idea of an elevator pitch is you are going to an interview, you are going to an event, and it's at this big important building, and you get in the elevator and there's someone who looks like maybe you'd want to get to know them. So you shake their hand and you say, "I'm Hannah Logan, nice to meet you." You have 20, maybe 30 seconds until you get to your destination in the elevator to tell them about yourself. So this is how that phrase came to be. And so it's a very quick, focused type of communication, and it's really appreciated in a society like the US that values quick conversations, very efficient situations. And so it's really important, if you're going to come to the US, to take time to create it, rehearse it, adapt it as you need, depending on the situation. So on the right, you will see some situations in which it would be very appropriate to have your elevator pitch ready to start a conversation with someone. So when you're at law school in the United States, there are lots of networking events with other law schools, for example, or maybe local law firms. There are job fairs, because you're all going to be amazing students and get interviews. You'll be at a job fair. In an interview in the United States, one of the first questions is almost always, "Tell us about yourself." That's the elevator pitch. You have 20 seconds. You don't want to bore them. You want to give them just the important highlights of your life and why you would be useful to them. In classes or seminars, you go to a workshop that a professor is holding about whatever their area of expertise is. You're going to meet lots of different people, and it's really helpful to have this short piece of information to share with them about yourself. There will also be opportunities to meet with attorneys, mentors, potential clients. This is a really important tool so that they get just an idea, but an important idea of who you are and why you're there. And then, of course, in conversations with people like Olivera and Sarah and me, conversations with law school admissions representatives at events like this, at other webinars or fairs or something like that. So there are lots of situations in which it is really helpful to have that 20 to 30 second piece telling people about yourself. So, for example, I timed this out, I practiced it, it's 27 seconds. My name is Hannah Logan. I'm the Assistant Director of International Programs at the University of Minnesota Law School. I've worked for this department for more than 7 years and really appreciate the opportunities that I've had to travel the world, access excellent professional development at the Central University level, and work with incredible students who are already lawyers in their home countries. My degrees are in communications and international education. So at this point in my career, I'm really looking for a way to learn more about the legal system here in Mexico. I'm delighted to be at this happy hour with so many accomplished lawyers at this important firm. Can you tell me more about what you do? So in this situation, I'm at a happy hour. Some firm is putting it on as a way for people to meet each other, law school representatives, maybe potential students, Education USA representatives. This is just a brief way to get to know each other and start a conversation about something else. It's important to end with a question to then invite them, this other person, to give you a similar pitch and have a foundation for a conversation then. So guess what we're doing now? You get to write an elevator pitch. I will give you 3 minutes this time. It's a little more in depth, but really think about the 5 words and phrases that you thought about with your personal brand. How do you want to present yourself? What are key parts of your personality, your education, your work experience that you want to portray in a situation like this, where you have 30 seconds to meet someone and network with them, and then see where the conversation goes? So who are you? What have you done? What do you hope to do? Think about your brand identity. I'm setting a timer for 3 minutes right now. If you feel comfortable, if you type it out, we would love to, or if you want to unmute yourself, you're certainly welcome to do that. While you're thinking about this and writing this, Olivera, would you like to share your elevator pitch?
Oh, sure. Mine is I like yours better, Hannah. So I'm going to adapt it on the fly, but here's one version of my elevator pitch. So, hello, my name is Olivera Jovanovic, and I currently serve as the Assistant Dean for Strategic Enrollment Management at the University of San Francisco. I have a background in leading academic programs, reaching and setting enrollment goals, and really focusing on how to balance all of the administrative goals with a student-centered approach. I currently oversee 3 departments in the entire student life cycle, from recruitment and marketing all the way through to student affairs and graduation. It's important to me that I have built strong relationships with colleagues and students, and that we really look at things from a strategic point of view so we can improve operational efficiencies and focus on that student experience at the same time. So I would say that that's my version of the elevator pitch. And then I would add something at the end, situationally based, such as Hannah did. Like, I'm excited to be here to learn more about what you do, or I'm really interested in this point in my career in understanding the alumni affairs component and how alumni affairs can be integrated and prepared for in the student affairs component of the university. So I'd love to talk to you more about X, Y, and Z in your professional experience. So that's how I would maybe approach one. That's a current goal of mine. And I do know that one of our attendees mentioned that they couldn't chat their brand words to everyone. The chat is just enabled. So if you do want to share your elevator pitch, raise your hand, or you can chat it to us, and we're happy to share. But I'm excited to see some really good brand exercises come through.
Yeah, I think, Olivera, the point that you made about even just talking to colleagues is really important. In the US, it's common to work at big universities like the University of San Francisco or the University of Minnesota. And I meet people every week who I've never met before who work at the university, and they need to know in 30 seconds what I do and why I'm at this meeting. And so an elevator pitch is not just about finding a job. It's not just about hoping that maybe they'll be your mentor or professional, guide or something for something. It really is presenting yourself as a professional in a situation, whatever that might be. Whether that's meeting someone from the alumni office for the first time, here's who I am and why I want to work with you, or meeting an attorney at some sort of job fair or networking event. Here's who I am and why I would like to get to know you better. You have knowledge that I would like, and I have energy and an opportunity to work that you might appreciate as well.
Well, the chat, let me just note that our hosts have said that the chat is open so everyone can share messages, should be able to share messages to the whole group. And I want to add one note, Hannah, about why network. I was an attorney before I came into higher education, and I actually worked 3 different jobs before I came to higher ed, and I never got a single job through a traditional application process. Everything was through networking. And that's why I think this presentation is so important, because it does play a big role. And we'll talk more about that in the next few slides, but it really is an important skill to practice.
All right, well, if no one wants to share, that's okay. We will move on to talking more about general networking.
All right, so who do you network with? One thing that we constantly tell students is the first place to start is with the people you already know. Now, you may say, well, I'm a student, no one in my family is an attorney. That's okay. The people that you encounter on a day-to-day basis, they don't need to be lawyers to provide value to your legal network. So think about who you know, what professions they're in. For example, an engineer in a larger company will have a legal counsel in their organization. There are other ways to connect with legal professionals indirectly. So don't forget that even if you're not already in the legal field, the people you know can be very valuable. People from your past, such as professors, guest speakers from events, colleagues, supervisors, are all important sources. And if you're pursuing an LLM degree or any advanced degree, those people need to know about it. Your immediate network needs to be aware of what you're doing. So you can utilize LinkedIn, you can send emails, but keep them informed of your journey and your process. And that's a good way to start to build your network. You may say, hey, I'm going to go do an LLM in the US. And some friend or colleague says, oh, I know someone in that city. And you've already expanded your network once over. Next slide. The other part of networking is the people you want to know. And these may be specific individuals that you are trying to emulate their career or work for or with them, or they have some sort of expertise that you are interested in. And you can find these individuals a number of ways. Again, the people you already know, the alumni offices, LinkedIn, social media, conferences. These are all great opportunities to think about specific individuals who may be able to inform you in your career. You can also think about your general personal goals, an area of interest, your industry, similar employers to yours. Those are all ways that you can identify individuals or groups that may be helpful for you to engage with or get to know. And of course, alumni for your university. But the one thing I'll say is maybe not just your university. What we often find, Hannah and I work with Education USA offices all over the world, and alumni from LLM programs in general are very happy to be a resource for other students because it is a significant journey that you're making. And so they want to be supportive. All right, next slide, Hannah.
If I can just jump in really quickly, I will say,
Please.
I think we cannot emphasize enough the culture in the United States is that when you attend an education program and graduate from it, you are part of this network, this family kind of situation, all affiliated with this university. And so if whatever firm you go to, ask, is there anyone here who also earned their degree from the University of San Francisco? Whatever, government organization or ministry department that you go to, you can ask, is anyone else here an alum of University of New Hampshire? People really value that connection, and that opens so many doors. Just saying, I also graduated from, even if it's not the same university, in the same city or something like that. In any case.
Absolutely. Good point, Hannah. All right, I want to talk a little bit about how. So you're going to find your person that you want to connect with, your targeted individual, and you're going to use what we just talked about in the last slides to narrow down a list of people. And let me say this, networking is a job in and of itself, not to be done too quickly. You're trying to build relationships that will provide you value in the long run. So it is a quality game, not a quantity. So there may be a number of people. Start phasing through, create a list with your targets and figure out who you might be able to connect with easily or who might provide you the most value, but identify who you want to connect with. Then you're going to do the initial outreach, and you can usually use email if you're able to get their email. If it's someone you don't know, I think a LinkedIn request is best, but do consider the fact that you want it to be a formal, professional email, and we'll talk about those in a second. If you have commonalities, so maybe you're like, oh, I had the opportunity to meet Hannah at this networking presentation, and she referred me to you or recommended that I reach out to you. Start with your commonality and be very specific about your ask. If you want to meet with them via Zoom or in person, ask that directly, but also be accommodating and be flexible. You are asking them for a favor. So you can share your general availability, but note that you will accommodate them because you don't know their schedule and what they are dealing with on the other side of the email. So do keep that in mind. Next slide. All right. This meeting, note number 3, do take notes for future follow-up. But I also want to add a caveat. I was once interviewing for a job and the interview was on Zoom, and I worked with a career coach, and she had coached people at Microsoft, Google, major corporations all over the US. And she said, in the Zoom era, if you're going to take notes, please let the other person know that you're taking notes, and do try and only take the notes that you need, because the wonderful thing about Zoom in particular is that you have this availability to meet with anyone, anywhere in the world. But because you're not in person, you're missing some of the nonverbal body language and cues. And so maintaining eye contact and presence in the meeting is all the more important. So if you are going to take notes and you need to remember something, that's fine. But do remember you're trying to build a relationship. And so stay engaged, but do make sure you take notes for future follow-up. And when you end the conversation, end with your specific ask. There are two examples here. And I will say that the first example will probably get you a lot further. Thank them for their time and they've been helpful. And it's always, even if you don't have a great connection with someone, I think it's always wonderful to ask them if there's somebody else that they can refer you to that might be helpful in your career. In regards to the second statement, not every meeting is going to lead directly to a job. But if you are interested in working long-term and that's your goal, I think it's okay to say, I'm interested in working while I'm on my OPT, optional practical training year. Where do you recommend that I look, or who do you recommend that I speak to? I think that's the best way to kind of phrase it. And finally, I can't say this enough, please do send a thank you. It is so important both to the person that you're meeting with and to the person that referred you, that you are respectful of the time and thankful. And that goes a very long way. And a simple email is a wonderful way to stay in contact. I'll add in here, which I didn't put in the slides, I often encourage people to keep a spreadsheet or a log of the people they've met with, who referred them, how to contact them, because it's just helpful for you to have something to look back. And you can add a summary of your notes. Maybe you'll add that Sarah, our colleague, is very well versed in IP issues, and that Hannah is wonderful in working with international students, and she might have some other students for you to follow up with. Those kinds of things so that you don't forget. All right, next slide. So we talked about the how, and I want to give you two examples. You'll have these slides afterwards. This is an email sent by an LM student and structured to ask for this kind of meeting request. And this is an example from the University of New Hampshire. And you can see it's very straightforward. And immediately the person introduces themselves and their role. They introduce that commonality. I have the same degree and I'm deciding what to do. And then they make a simple, specific ask. Do you have a few minutes? And this person gives their general availability, which I think is important, but they aren't too specific, because that gives that flexibility to the recipient. And they say thank you and they're polite. And so this is one example of an email that you can send when you're trying to make a connection with someone. On the next slide, I have a template that I use and save. So this one, similarly, again, it has the introduction. They're reaching out because of a mutual connection. If you have a mutual connection, it shares a little bit about what you're interested in. And this is where you're going to pull from your elevator pitch or your personal brand. So what are you specifically interested in? And again, it asks for the ability to meet. It gives some flexibility in options and general time. And I always like to say thank you in advance for your time, and I look forward to meeting with you. I feel like those two things push someone to just to feel appreciated early and are more likely to say yes. So these are two examples. So with that, let's go to the next slide, Hannah. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, maybe 3. I think 3 minutes is fair to practice now. Write your own message. And this would be something that you would use for a networking request. So take some time to write something. You can maybe, Hannah, we can toggle back to each of our examples for a minute, but do draw inspiration from some of your personal brand and your elevator pitches.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I did not end up putting an example in there. I thought 2 was perfectly sufficient. I will say sometimes if a very busy person is reading a lot of emails or a lot of LinkedIn messages, it might help to put a specific question in there with a question mark at the end to draw their attention. So as you're thinking about this, for this example right now, it's less important. But as you're doing this in real life, asking the question, are you available to speak with me briefly, either in person or via Zoom in the next few weeks? ? And having that symbol there might help draw their attention. And then if they're not reading very closely, which they should, but they're not going to, it will help draw their attention at least first to what that specific question is and what the reason for your contacting them is.
That's a very good point, Hannah. There is a lot to be said about brevity or being direct and upfront. So absolutely all good points. Okay, we'll give people 1 more minute. And I'm seeing some great elevator pitches. I don't want to call people out, but what I am seeing is Sophia shared hers. So Sophia, I love that you identify some of your experience and your specialization right up front, and you share with what you want to do in the future and what you're expecting to do in your work experience. That's a great starting point. And then Mauricio shared earlier his brand, his 5 brand words, and I love them and I want to share them. They're innovative, tech-skilled lawyer, which is really important in our current legal climate, resilient, friendly, and socially committed. And I think that's a great balance. And it tells me a lot already about maybe what areas of law you might be interested in, or what kind of events or networking opportunities, or who might be a good fit to pair you up with. If you were a student, you were looking to connect with an alumni. So I think that's wonderful. Good job, everyone. All right. So we're at 4:48. So you'll have these 2 examples. Anyone is welcome to share their message in the chat, and we can, we're happy to provide if you have any questions or insight about it, we're happy to give you some feedback. Let's turn next to the informational interview. And I'll back up and say, when you make this meeting request, what you are requesting in essence is what we call in the US an informational interview. It is time for you to speak with that person. It is not a job interview. It's a fact-finding expedition, right? You are saying, Hannah, I'm so interested in how you made this transition to higher education. And I love that you work with international students. I would love to know more about how I can work with international students and what kind of skills are, valuable to that job. So think about it that way. That is what you're asking for. These are not job interviews, although we hope they lead to job opportunities. And I think what is important for you as a group is to remember that you can do these and should be doing these to build your network, both in Mexico and in the US, as well as in the world, if you have global aspirations to your practice. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so I've touched a little bit on this already, but they help you explore career options, practice areas, employment settings, right? Just because you have an informational interview does not mean you're committed to a certain area of law. It might be something that you want to explore and determine if it's a good fit for you. And the same thing with a firm. It may be that you have dreams of coming to a big firm, but once you find out about the culture, you're better able to make a determination if the big firm aspirations are really what you want to truly do. It's also a really good way to hone your interview skills. And you might say, but I'm asking questions. I'm finding out more about someone else. Yes, but they're going to be asking you questions back. And in US interviews, it's very common to wrap up an interview by asking questions. And so this practice of active listening, of engaging with someone who you don't have a strong relationship with in a professional setting is great practice for interviews as well. Next slide. All right, so how can you prepare for this informational interview? You want to send your resume to the person ahead of the interview. This is going to allow them to get to know you a little bit better. And don't worry if you don't have a US style resume. We all have career services offices that can help you prepare them.
Or Education USA offices.
Or Education USA offices. Thank you, Hannah. You can research your contact. What is their personal brand? What are they trying to convey? You can look at their LinkedIn, their profiles online for their firm, what kind of cases they've done, their work experience is usually on their firm bio. So do have some research about what it is that they are trying to convey to the world. It'll make your conversation richer, and it'll help you determine if you are what you want to ask them about, because you do want to prepare questions. Now, depending on the goal of your informational interview, those questions are going to differ, but typical things are their likes and dislikes in relationship to their work or their practice area, what a typical day looks like, what skills are necessary for success in their role, what professional organizations do they recommend that you get involved with in order to grow your career, and just general advice. So think about what you may want to ask them. And again, don't forget to write your thank you note. So with that, I'll turn it over to Hannah to talk about some networking opportunities while you're in the US.
So thank you, Olivia. What we've tried to convey here in this last 45 minutes or so is that having a network is really important, not just for getting a new job someday in the future or now if you need it, but just to have more knowledge and more experience about the work that you're doing in the world that we're living in. And so there are a lot of opportunities for you to use these skills, especially the elevator pitch, especially the informational interview, especially just reaching out to people. Things like student organizations when you're in law school. There are so many events. Many of them will have networking events with local bar associations or practice area societies to make that connection between students and current practitioners. You will meet lots of professors and faculty members no matter where you go to school. That's a great chance to practice your elevator pitch. They want to get to know you. You're walking down the hall with them to their office from the classroom. You have about 30, maybe 40 seconds. That's the perfect time to do it. That's a great way to start a conversation. Every career center at every law school will host events throughout the year so that you can get a chance to meet other law students, other lawyers. Often they will invite guest speakers or alumni. The alumni associations themselves have different professional development events that they will host. And ideally, if you want to work in the US, you will get an internship or a job while you're on OPT. And that you have to start the conversation somewhere. If you find out you're applying to, or you got an interview at a specific firm, for example, you can research a person and contact them on LinkedIn ahead of time to have an informational interview before your interview. And you can walk into the interview where they will be asking you most of the questions, but you will have so much knowledge about what the firm is like, what the culture is like, what some of their big accomplishments have been recently. At the end, when they say, do you have any questions for us? You will be able to say, I heard about that big case you won recently. What was it like working on that? What do you think made the difference? Or something like that. And that is so impressive for people who want to hire somebody. If you already know things and you have already done the work, it looks amazing. Just generally being adept at LinkedIn, being connected with people is always a good idea. And like Olivia talked about, the informational interview, not for a job, just for knowledge, is such a valuable tool as you are creating your network. And because of Zoom and the internet, you can do that with anyone you have class with, anyone some of your classmates know in different countries. The opportunities are truly endless. So you can start today. Networking starts today. Think about what we have talked about today. Think about what you have practiced. How do you want to present yourself as a professional or a student? What do you want to be your personal brand? What tools do you want to start using? Things like informational interviews or the elevator pitch? And how might you optimize your network if you come to the US or when you come to the US? Today is the day to start it. Olivia and I are here. We have our contact information on this next slide as well. If you are interested in talking to Sarah at another point, she would be happy to answer emails very soon. With that, Olivia, what else do we need to talk about before we stop presenting and open it up to questions?
You know, the only thing I'll add is something that came up very early in the personal brand when you said to Google yourself. And I really think that's really important. In a time when we use a lot of social media, you're going to be Googled by everyone you send an email to. Think about what is out there and how you're being represented, because you don't want to put all of this time and work into conveying who you want to be, only to realize that there's so much already out there that maybe isn't who you are. I got a Facebook memory from 20 years ago, maybe, yeah, 20 years ago. And that's not who I am. So it's interesting to think about the fact that many of us have had social media and an online presence for so long. So when you think about moving into your professional career, think about also what may be already out there and impacting that brand.
Absolutely. We are getting old, aren't we?
Experienced. I'd like to say that we're getting experienced, more experienced every day.
Wise and experienced, yes.
So if anyone has questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or ask to unmute, turn on your camera. Ah, Mauricio. Okay, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you for all this amazing lecture. I was wondering, this elevator speech that we practice in this meeting is applicable or can be used, for example, if I meet someone in a vacation environment. I mean, right from my own experience, I once met a CEO of an important Mexican enterprise when I was in a plane to Europe. So I was unprepared. So I think that it did not did like a really nice impression. So I was wondering if it can be used in the same setting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there should be, spend some time creating your ideal elevator pitch. But the more time you spend creating it and identifying your brand, the easier it is for you to adapt it in different situations, right? The examples Hannah and I gave, we would probably use in a meeting where everyone is introducing themselves, or in some sort of informational interview, or meeting with a new colleague. But there is certainly a shorter version that I have that is about casual settings where I just introduce myself. So yes, you were right. And research shows that the more time you kind of spend creating or crafting something and working on it, the more comfortable you are with it, so that you can speak to it, even if it's not the exact same pitch, but you can still speak to that brand that you want to convey every time. That's a wonderful question.
Yeah, and you can have more than one version too. Yeah, like you said, Olivetta, having a more formal professional version versus a more like casual, maybe happy hour networking type version. And practicing with your friends, like Olivetta and I don't work at the same university. We do not live in the same city, but she is absolutely someone I would call or get on Zoom and say, can I practice this with you? I'm applying for a new job. I'm not, but if I were, can I practice this with you as my opening statement for an interview? Something like that. Practicing it out loud will make a big difference too.
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah, thanks, Mauricio.
Thank you so much, all of you.
Any other questions that anyone may have?
We have one in the chat.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, the question is this: how much do you recommend that we use LinkedIn for networking? Any advice on how to do it without being seen as a stalker? I love the way you phrased that question. I would say that I think you can come up with a schedule of posting or activity on LinkedIn. Certainly, I think in the US, there are other professional networking sites worldwide, but in the US, I think it has a strong presence. So I think that you can use it in all the ways we talked about today, to identify people, to follow them or connect with them. There are two different features on LinkedIn. You can follow companies as well. And just like any social media, there's an algorithm, right? The more active you are, the more that you will populate, but you should use it in a way that is that you're contributing. You know, if there's a legal issue or a conference or something where they have speakers and someone shares, you can comment on those things and try and engage people and engage in conversation that way. How to do it without being seen as a stalker? There is the ability, people can see when you've viewed someone's profile, and that's okay. We know that people are exploring it out there. So I don't think that I think people understand, and they're all putting out their best foot forward, and they want to be found and noticed by other people. You are all welcome to go look at my LinkedIn or Hannah's or Sarah's, and look at how we listed, our experience, or how we use LinkedIn and the kinds of things we post, and use that as an example to the extent that it's helpful. Hannah?
Yeah, I think one thing you mentioned earlier was talking about a commonality. And so if it's like a really specific thing, like, oh, I saw on your LinkedIn, you posted that you were at the specific park with your dog named Fido, like that feels too personal. But if you keep it very professional, like, oh, I can see you also went to the University of New Hampshire, or, oh, I can see you also attended this conference, or you also follow this, celebrity thinker or company, just that very small, if you're contacting someone, that very small detail saying, I'm not just someone who's trying to stalk you. I did take some time to learn about you at a very professional level. And that's why I'm contacting you. I think that will help. I will also say that the timing matters. So if you are at a conference, or if you're at an event like this, adding them on LinkedIn or sending a message within maybe 2 or 3 business days is a good idea. If you wait a week or 2 weeks or longer, they're not going to remember you. It feels a little more random. And so if you're strategic about the timing of it, you go to some conference or a professional development event that night, go home and add them. It makes sense. It's fresh in everybody's mind. Of course, they're going to get a lot of LinkedIn requests that day. Hopefully we'll have some when we log back in tomorrow morning as well from all of you. So I think that is a good thing to keep in mind too.
And if you don't know someone, or you haven't engaged with them, I highly recommend using the message feature to say, hey, Hannah, I saw you present today. I found it so helpful. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Because I think that adds some value. Hannah might go look at your profile. She might be like, oh, that's so interesting. This student does X, Y, and Z, or they're interested in that. The cold just connect, you may end up in waiting for a response for a very long time, because someone's going to be like, oh, I don't remember. Did we meet today? Did I talk to them? I have to tell you that I'm sometimes really bad with names, even after I've talked to someone for like 15 minutes. So it's not personal, but then I might just be hesitant to be like, how do I know this person? And why are they looking to connect with me? So do keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Great question.
Yeah, wonderful question.
Thank you, Olivera and Hannah, for this wonderful presentation. I think you gave us a lot of resources. And I would invite, you can open your mic, you can open your camera, you can write in the chat. So if you have any other questions, this is the time to do it. We have the experts here. Yeah. I think Mauricio's and Aranza's questions were great. I have another questions about working in this personal brand and in the elevator pitch. You give us some wonderful exercises, and I think we can go back. We will have the recording of the session, and we can go back and take the time to do it. I think it's a great exercise for everybody here. But if you have any other resources that you can recommend for working on this personal branding, how to do your elevator pitch, that would be great.
Yeah, I think maybe Hannah and I can pull together some of the things that we use and share it with you, and you can share it with the attendees. Mm-hmm. I think the best thing to do is just practice, and that is a really scary thing to do, to make yourself vulnerable. But one of the best things around this is to put yourself forward and practice, so that you can get feedback from people as to how you present yourself. And I'll say one other thing, a lot of the conversation on informational interviews, there's also a large component of online etiquette. So what you can see is that Hannah and I have virtual backgrounds. Zoom has some virtual backgrounds. If you're meeting with a professional, you want to either, make sure that you are professionally presenting yourself as well too. And so there are a lot of free things like Zoom backgrounds or blurring or something like that, and trying to make sure to the extent possible you're somewhere quiet and your microphone works. Those are things that I've noticed so much more in the last few years because of COVID.
Yeah, I was very lucky that my baby was only crying when I was not presenting, so I was able to be on mute, and that was perfect. But I will also say at the beginning of the pandemic, when we all shifted to Zoom, there was a lot of joking about pajamas or, you know, wearing sweatpants, and I think that has passed. I think Zoom is here to stay. I think pajamas have to go. You've got to dress like you're at the office or in a meeting in real life, even if you're on Zoom.
And Aranza also asked, where would you find the video? We have a YouTube Education USA Mexico video. We have all our sessions there, but you'll receive the link to it after maybe tomorrow or Friday. You'll have the link so you can watch it and also share it because it was a great presentation. And I have another question regarding the cultural differences that you may find. Maybe it is different when you are doing this networking in the US. And I know you have a lot of experience with the students from other countries, and maybe they don't know how to approach this networking. So maybe you can share your experience on these cultural differences in approaching networking. That would be great.
Yes, I'll start off with, I think that in Central, South America, and Mexico and Latin American culture, there tends to be a lot of time in business spent getting to know people personally. And in the US, there's not as much emphasis on that. Networking is that middle ground where you do get to share a little bit about yourself, but it tends to be more about your professional background. And so I always advise students not to take that personally. It's just the culture here in the US to be a little bit more business focused and direct in your networking. It does not mean that somebody is not interested in who you are. It's just our cultural expectation is different about what we discuss and how we lead up to our business meetings or interviews or things like that. Hannah?
Yeah, I would also say there are variations within the United States culturally a little bit too. And so if you have a plan or you hope to connect with a specific person, thinking about that target Olivera talked about earlier, you can just reach out to Olivera or me or Sarah and say, you know, this is how I would normally approach the situation. Can you tell me if this would be appropriate or not? And we can say, yes, a handshake would be appropriate, or no, that's too much personal information in this situation. You'll want to keep it more brief. People at Education USA will probably have a good sense of that too. It's worth asking an expert those first few times just to get a sense of it. And I think if and when you are enrolled in law school in the US, the Career Center is always there for you. They want you to make appointments. They want you to practice with them. That is a safe, nothing bad is going to happen if you make a big mistake or something that's totally culturally inappropriate in that situation. That's what they're there for, to help you navigate that and make sure you don't do that in the real world. Or maybe everything's great and perfect and they'll give you a high five and say, congratulations, you're going to get this job.
And we have a wonderful message in the chat from Indira. Thanks for sharing such interesting information. And she just reminded me that today is Lawyers' Day in Mexico. So for all the lawyers here or the lawyers that are studying their degree, congratulations. This is great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
How do you celebrate Lawyers' Day in Mexico?
I don't know. Maybe Aranza can tell us.
Let's celebrate. We should. We should. A day
we are
off,
celebrating with this session, of course.
Yeah. Indira, yeah. Can we unmute you? Let's see here.
You're unmuted, but I'm not quite sure if we can hear you. It doesn't sound like your microphone is on. No, if you want to type it in the chat, but we appreciate you showing your face on camera. It's always nice when we present to see people.
Thank you for trying. Yeah.
All right. Well, happy Lawyers' Day to everyone. I'll go wish my husband the same. If there are any other questions, we're happy to be a resource to all of you. As Hannah said, connect with us on LinkedIn. It makes us happy. And we hope that we get to meet or see some of you at our universities.
Yeah, and we can put our email addresses in the chat too here. I think I say this at almost every one of these types of presentations, and I really mean it. If you have questions about law school in general or the legal community in general in the United States, feel free to email or send a LinkedIn message. Give the context of, I met you at the Education USA presentation, just so I know you're not a random stalker, like we were talking about earlier. The context is helpful. Here's the commonality. Here's how we know each other. And Olivera and Sarah and I are always happy to help make connections, or if you don't know who to contact at a specific school, we probably do. Or if you just want to practice, give us your little, informational interview request, and we're happy to help if you've got more questions in the future too.
Oh, Sophia has a question.
I'm sorry. Hi, I would like to know if you think that it's better to be in the school or to be online, because right now I'm studying the university online because of some conditions in my personal life. So I'd like to know if you consider that it's better to be like in person or to be online, or do you find a big difference between these two?
Well, I'll say from an admissions perspective, it does not matter to us if you're applying to our programs, if you are in person or online. I do have to say that the state bar exams, if that's one of your goals long-term, can have different approaches. California and New York tend to be the two most popular bar examinations for LLM students, although many jurisdictions allow it, and their rules, I use them because their rules are very different. New York is very strict about an online LLB or first degree in law. California is not. So those are not the only two jurisdictions. They're just big comparison points that I wanted to share. And then from a networking perspective, if you're asking about whether or not you want to attend school, an LLM program in person or online, it depends really on what your goals are. Certainly, I think in person, day to day, you have more opportunities for the casual networking. And if you decide to do an online program, you just need to be more active in building your network. But it doesn't mean that it's a detriment. It's absolutely something that's possible. It's just, we like to say in the US, there's a joke about law school where you ask a professor a question and his or her response is, it depends, because depending on the factors and how they're weighed, the answer can be very different. And so it's a common answer we say to our prospective students. It depends. Depends on what your goals are, and it depends on what you feel like you can accomplish. But nothing is impossible. I'm sorry, that's messed up. Nothing is impossible, and you can still network successfully from either type of program. Hannah, anything you want to add?
I have nothing to add. That's exactly what I would have said. Sophia, did you have something else you wanted to ask or clarify?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you all for your participation today too. It's quite lovely to see you engage back with us. It makes these, I think, more valuable, these sessions, and more fun for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you all for your time. Contact us if you have any questions. Reach out to your Education USA advisors for thoughts and help when you're ready to apply.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this session, Hannah and Olivera. Definitely, it was very informative, and I'm pretty sure most of the people that is here and most of the people that are going to see it later on YouTube are going to contact you with further questions probably. Okay, so it was an honor and it was a pleasure to having you with us today. And well, thank you to the rest of you that attended today. Remember that you can follow us on social media or send us an email or a message, or even on LinkedIn. You can find us. So don't hesitate to contact us to allow us to help you to meet your goals of studying in the US. And if you have any further questions about networking, we will be very happy to answer them. Well, so thank you and see you next time.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.